family, welcome to Praise Accelerates Grace with Shanae Blackway. I am your host, and today is one of the shows that I've been looking forward to, but most importantly, I have as my guest my mother, my twin, the lady who God used to bring onto this earth, the vessel that created your very own Queen Diva. And I wish I could say that my mother is just like me, but unfortunately, my mother is someone that is very soft-spoken. But today we're going to bring out that voice, right? I want to represent you guys to someone that obviously has been part of my life since I was born. And that was 31 years ago. The Octavia Lentour. Emphasis, Octavia Lentour. How are you, Ma?
I'm good, thanks, Shanae.
I hope that introduction made you a bit loose.
Yes.
Am I shouting too loud? Tell me when I need to decrease my volume.
Yeah,
Okay,
it is
Ma.
a bit.
This is my show, my rules. I'm joking. So, first of all, I would love to thank you. I know as a mother, this must have been one of the hardest things to share today. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this new leaf in our life, and that my testimony could allow us the opportunity to help others, right? So today, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Seeing that you're okay makes me fine. Just the fact that you're healing, you're healed. We thank God for healing.
Amen.
We thank God for His amazing grace over your life.
Yes.
Seeing you happy makes me happy.
So like I said, guys, this is my mother. And obviously, I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 28. That is almost 3 years ago now. But let's take it back, right? I want us to get to know my mother a bit better, and also to understand where and why the history of our family is so important. We're going to start off with your own health journey, right? Can you just tell us, as a young woman, what has built your character when it comes to your health journey? And I would say I'll share a bit more with you guys, but I just need my mother to explain her life. And I'm going to tell you now why I'm saying that. So one of the things that my mother has always instilled in my sister and us is advocacy, right? And my family is, I don't even want to say the word, but we laugh about it now. But we are very ignorant when it comes to certain things, especially health conversations. So one of the main things that I always speak to my mother about is how forward we are when it comes to making sure that we speak to the right doctors at the right time. And my mother has walked this journey with me, and there were many times where I think she saw herself in me, but her fear did not allow her to agree with my actions. So what were the similarities that you saw in my journey? Obviously, pre-diagnosis, when I was misdiagnosed 5 times, my mother was there right beside me. What were the first things that you were thinking about your own journey with regards to, I don't want to say the scares that you've had?
Okay, so I think it's 10 years or 12 years ago, I had to remove my womb. I had to have a full hysterectomy.
Yes.
Because there was cyst on my womb.
Yes.
And I remember the gynecologist said to me, it is benign, but if we don't remove it, it can become cancerous. So they had to remove my whole womb. And I didn't even have time to take it in because she said to me it's an emergency. She gave me like a week to go. She's like, no, don't think about it. We have to remove. So I removed my womb. And then, say 8 years ago, I had a breast cancer scare. And I remember, Shame, I went to Helen Joseph Hospital, and Dr. Carol Ann Bain saw me for the first time. I did my biopsies and everything, but I also had to basically fight with my GP to send me for a biopsy because I had this constant pain in my right breast, and the doctor kept on saying, no, it's just tissue muscle that's breaking. And I said to him, you are going to refer me to somebody that can look at my breast. And they referred me to Dr. Carol N. Ben. And we're grateful that it was benign again, and it is just breast tissue that breaks down. So with Shanae's journey, I saw a lot of what I've been through, that I had to advocate for myself and say something is wrong.
Okay.
The same with my womb. I was bleeding. And I remember I went to the doctor and I said, something is wrong.
Wow.
And she's like, no, as you grow older, it will become lesser. And I said to her, no, there's something wrong. And eventually I went for a pap smear, and then they found the cyst on my womb.
And again, guys, with Praise Accelerates Grace, we are all about education, and awareness is but one part of that. I think you mentioned something so amazing, and I always tell people that then knowing the different terms, like a benign tumor, right? In my mother's case, by the grace of God, she had obviously had done her research. She'd done her normal checks at home, and eventually she decided to go and see both her gynecologist and then Prof. Ben at Helen Joseph at the time. What I admire about your journey was the fact that you always spoke from a place of unknowing, right? So we did not grow up with these terms. When something is benign, it basically just means that the tumor is non-cancerous, but that does not mean you don't need to get it checked or you don't need to get it treated. Like my mother said, even though it was benign, she still needed to have a hysterectomy done, meaning she had to remove her womb. In some cases, some people has lost their entire reproductive system. And I remember when you were in hospital, that was such a hard time for us. Even though I was so glad that I would not have a little baby sister, a little baby brother running around, it was such a hard time for you with healing, you know. So it is not only the cancer that can cause this trauma to your family, but I remember that as soon as I was diagnosed. And I remember how so many people felt that you are having treatment for no reason, not knowing what it could cause in the future. So something that is benign can definitely turn into something like cancer, right? We're not saying that is with everyone's case, but again, educational purposes. Now, let's get to the tearjerker. I was trying to run away from this one, but we have to discuss it. And again, we are doing this because we want to encourage and we want to inspire other families could maybe have the similar situation. So first of all, on the 16th of January 2023, when I had called you and I had told you about having to meet up, you know, I'm not one to do that.
No, I was so surprised.
I'm the type of girl that says, don't come for me unless I call for you. And I called for you for the first time in forever. First of all, before I had shared the news with you and before I had walked into that door, what were you thinking?
To be quite honest, I thought you're going to say you're pregnant. Never did it slip my mind that it's something so serious. I remember I was on holiday when you phoned and you asked, Ma, what time do you think you'll be home?
Yeah.
And immediately I said to my friend, something is wrong. Shanae never checks up on me when I'm on holiday. And I said to her, I need to get home. And you walk in, but you didn't look sad or nothing. You were your vibrant self and yeah.
So that's what you were thinking, she's pregnant.
Yes.
Then the bomb dropped, right? And you said, honestly, I had no option. I know exactly what you guys had been through. So before we get into my diagnosis, less than 2 years earlier, we had a very traumatic thing happen in our family. Would you mind sharing that with our viewers, please?
My sister was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And it's been a journey. Seeing my sister deteriorate within 9 months, that was my biggest fear. The day when Shanae told me she had cancer, I was thinking I'm going to lose my baby. And the first thing I said to God is, not again. I can't go through another loss in my life. I lost my mom a year before my sister passed away, and then it was my sister. And just a year later, Shanae told me she's got breast cancer. And I won't lie, I was angry at God. And I said to God, Shanae is married. She's got a beautiful family. And I wanted to take places with my daughter on numerous times. I asked God, why not me? why somebody that's got such a beautiful family, that's got so much to live for. Because if you guys know Shanae, she's such a vibrant person. She's such a vibe to be around. But yeah, God had his reasons.
So, like you guys heard, my mother and I unfortunately lost my aunt. She was the cool aunt, and I would think that I'm a cool aunt too. Her name was Lavan Lentwer, and she was 2 years younger than my mother. I had walked the journey with my aunt as well, and my mother is the eldest. And as the eldest sibling, we know that you just mentioned as well that my grandmother had passed a year prior to my aunt, and you have now become the matriarch of our family. Can you just explain what encouraged you to encourage your sisters? Because you remember, you still have siblings, you still have another daughter, you have grandchildren, you have extended family that loves me, obviously. What pushed you to encourage them? What was the driving force behind you encouraging others while you were going through this as a mother?
I remember I said to everybody that we need to pray. So that's where we started by praying at 9 o'clock, where every household burned a candle, and then we'll pray as a family. And I said to myself, I'm going to go to war because I'm not losing you. I refused for Satan to take what belonged to me. I remember I always used to say to you, I brought you into this world and I'm going to take you out.
Not a
I
very
was
fond
not going to
memory.
allow Satan to do that.
Not a very fond memory, but we can laugh about it now. And I use the same term on my daughter. So, as much as you are placed on this earth as an eldest sibling, my mother is part of 6 sisters, and you know, they are now 5. I count myself as one of the sisters, so they've always been 6. But you obviously have to have people outside of your family that has made an impact in your life during your toughest times. Can you just maybe mention one of those things that really stands out till this day, that you can look back and say, I had a bad day, but someone lifted me up that day? Or an experience with someone?
I would say it's, I'm sorry, Makula, I know you're going to kill me for this, but I would say Cherie, our CEO, founder of Ophthalmologica. She has been amazing throughout my journey. Even when I was diagnosed with COVID, I remember Cherie used to phone Pick and Pay to deliver me food. She will send me airtime to make sure that I'm connected. And when I lost my mom, she was one of the people that made sure that I go for counseling. And even with you, she sent books for you to read. She checks up on me on a regular basis. She's just been amazing. And for that, I want to thank her.
And again, support is so important, especially when you are going through it the first time. But like you've heard before, this is not the first time that my family has experienced cancer. And unfortunately, everyone is not sitting here. Not one that was diagnosed with cancer has the opportunity to be a voice for the voiceless. And that is why Praise Accelerates Grace is not only for our viewers, but I believe that this would obviously be such a healing journey for my family, because as someone that has survived cancer twice, I get to sit here, but we remember the loved ones that we've lost. I can just ask you today, throughout the fear, because the only thing that you've ever witnessed with cancer in our family in the last year, and even 6 months before that, we lost Rosa to stomach cancer. When I was diagnosed and going through the treatments, how did that fear turn into hope?
To be quite honest, I was more fearful than I had hope. Like I said before, I was angry at God because I thought none of my family members survived cancer.
Yes.
And basically, I went into depression, and then the same person that I just mentioned, Cherie, she said to me, okay, Shanae needs you. And even the people at work, the tribe, we call our company a tribe, the Ophthalmologica tribe, they have been amazing. And then my sisters, Shamila, my other daughter, and Shamila is such a prayer warrior. I drew a lot of strength from her. And then I started praying, and she prayed with me. And looking at Renee made me realize that I can't give up. And like my grandmother always used to say, it's not over until the fat lady sings.
I'm not the fat lady, guys.
No, you're sexy. Then I realized I need to start praying because, and I said this to somebody the other day whose son was not well. And she was angry at him for his lifestyle. And I said, only you as a mother can pray for your child, even if you do it behind the scenes. Keep your child in your prayer and call your child by name. And that's what I started doing.
So we've spoken about the first diagnosis, which was the breast cancer. I'm not going to say it was my breast cancer because it belongs to not me, but God. God says, give your battles to me. It is not your burden to carry. And I had been through the treatments. One of the biggest hurdles for my family was losing my hair. I remember I said, I'm losing all my hair. You guys cannot have these fancy styles. Everyone must go cheese corp. Obviously, that didn't happen. Only my husband did that. And it was one of the hardest journeys. But I believe that there was some form of laughter in there. With the treatments, what was one of the fondest memories that you can remember about my journey with the breast cancer?
When you rang the bell after your chemo. And I remember I teared up that day. And the first thing I did was I thanked the Lord for getting you through the chemo treatments. Because I always say, you don't know what a person is going through. Not even me as your mother could understand what you were going through. But that day when you rang the bell, that was the happiest day of my life.
So like I said, the chemo was just the beginning of a journey, right? And we had numerous treatments after that. And eventually I was then in remission almost over a year later. And the doctors had given me the go-ahead and said, go and enjoy your life. There is no detection of any cancer cells in your body. And 5 weeks later, I started realizing that I do have more side effects. And at the time, we thought it was basically just side effects from the treatments that I've had. And you were obviously one of the people that I phoned when I was unsure about what was going on. When I phoned you and told you that I'm not well, what were one of the first thoughts that you had?
To be quite honest, I thought it was after effects from chemo and radiation. Never did it slip my mind that the cancer came back. Sorry about that. I remember I said to myself, there's no way, because the doctor said you're in remission. I remember we went and celebrated. We had lunch. And I said, nah, I thought it's just fatigue from all the treatments, And I remember I still said, you take it easy because you went back to the gym.
Yeah.
And I said, you've been too hard on yourself. You just need to take it easy, be kind to yourself. Yeah.
And all I was focused on was a six-pack.
Yes.
So first,
go to the gym 5 o'clock in the morning.
So before I was diagnosed, I was very active and I was very health conscious, right? And that is, again, my journey does not necessarily mean that everyone's journey would be the same. But, the myths and fear comes from things that we go through daily, right? And when I was diagnosed the second time with a brain tumor, and we were not sure what it would be, my mother was right next to me for most of my appointments, right? And, we have to report back to the family. And I know that many a times you did it without me because I just don't have, I think, the grace and the patience that you had so many times with sharing the story with others, and then also allowing yourself to be strong enough to also still be there for me. So what was one of those things that you felt like, even though I'm unsure myself, I now need to relay this message that, because obviously I was telling you I'm going to be fine because I knew who was carrying me, right? how did it feel to relay the message that we're going to have to go through another round of treatments for cancer because the cancer had returned to your family that had obviously been through so much, and after celebrating just shortly before that?
I was dumbstruck. I had to get my words, in order before I could sit them down. Because to be quite honest, we sisters are crybabies. We cry. And my biggest fear was like, how do I tell them that your cancer has spread into such a critical part of your body, your brain? When people talk about brain, you think, oh my word, is this person going to make it out of the operating room? Is she going to be okay after the operation? And I remember when I walk in and I look at my sisters, because we're very close, me and my sisters, I just burst out and I couldn't get the words out. And the first thing they asked me, are you fired? What's going on? Talk to us. And I just said, Shanae. And they're like, no, Shanae is okay. Was she in a car accident? I'm like, no, the cancer is back. And we cried. We cried, and it was such a hard time.
So I think one of the many things we have to understand is that everyone's journey is so different. And I always say that when we do tell my story, it is not to make anyone fear cancer, but instead understand that early detection does save your life. So we thank God that the brain tumor was manageable and that we could operate on it immediately. So I had the brain surgery, and then we were going to do more treatments. So obviously my family is no stranger. My family used to be no stranger to challenges in life. However, we are overcomers and we are on the other side. How would you say this journey has brought our family closer together?
As I already mentioned, we are very close. But I think even after losing Laverne, it brought us closer together, even closer. Actually, after losing my mother, because now we had to lean on each other for healing. And that was one of the reasons I decided to move back home, is to be around my siblings in order for me to heal. And then with you, I remember the Sunday lunches at your house, the Saturday afternoons visits, where we just pop in and make sure that you, Rowan, and Rona is okay. So I think it was our lunches and me doing like chores for you, even though I used to irritate you by cleaning the fridge and all that. But yeah, I would say it was just like spending time with you, Rowan and Renee, making sure that you guys are okay.
And there you have it, family. So many times we get carried away with our day-to-day lives that we forget to focus on something as simple as having lunch with your child and also making time for family. So if anything I want us to take from this is that cancer can break us in so many ways, but it does build up to a huge extent, and it makes us realize how fragile life really is. And I think that is one of the amazing things that has always been for my journey, to share it with people, that yes, I am gracefully broken. Broken being after grace, because praise accelerates grace. I'm going to ask this question because I want our viewers to not only leave with something, but I want other families to know that even though you have to look back on the history of what your family has been through, that does not determine our future. So to any family members that might be going through something similar, feeling like I've been through so much. I've lost my mother. I've had my own scares. I have lost a part of my body. I know obviously you were just one of the people that was like, I don't care if I have a hysterectomy. I was not going to have any other kids. But that is a part of your body that you were never planning to remove, right? And the recovery of that has obviously been something that comes with so many other things that we'll have to touch on in the future. But what can you say to a family that might be going through something similar? What would your message be to them today?
Is to trust in God and don't lose sight. I was watching a movie called Prayer Room the other day, and it reminded me so much of your journey. And like I mentioned previously, that we as a family decided to pray at a certain time. And when we pray, we would call on Shanae's name and we would ask God for healing. So what I would advise any person going through something similar as a mother is never stop praying for your child. And always just ask God to be with you as the mother as much as He is with the child, because you as your child needs to lean on your support. Yeah, that's all I would say, is just pray for your child, support your child as much as you can. And sometimes I know it's overbearing where your child will say, Mommy, this is too much. But I would never say that trying to help is too much. It's just you want to support, because your silent voice sometimes, just your presence, wants to make a difference.
And there you have it, family. So many times we focus on things in life that would bring us to a point where we have to look at life differently. And I am honored. I am so grateful that God has kept you to not only witness your grandchildren, but to see that we would have the ability to break a generational curse. And sometimes you might not have noticed this, but just through your advocacy, introducing us to private hospitals and having medical aid as one of the vital points, right? When I started working, I remember I mentioned to my friends, I've never not had medical aid, and that is by the grace of God, through my mother having amazing employers and then exposing her to this different life, because we do come from a family where we did not have the opportunity. However, my mother did mention that Helen Joseph, which is a government hospital, had also helped her during a time of need when she did not have the necessary resources, as her case was so urgent. So whenever you guys are going through something and you feel like you need to go to a specific doctor, or you have to speak to a specific hospital in order to get healing, remember that we have the number one healer. And again, faith comes through all of this. And I want you guys to never forget that it is never the end. Today we sit here as a family with our heads held high, and we can share our story with you guys, and believing this would not be the end for you as well. Mindset positively, and also believing in God through it all. Praying. Philippians, praying through the challenges. So I want you guys to come through today and remember that family is important, but so is advocating for your health. Regardless of where you go, I want to give you the courage and the strength to speak up for the discomfort that you might be experiencing, and do not brush it off, because nothing might turn into something. And early detection does save lives. So get yourself checked, guys, and never forget to share your journeys with us on all our social media platforms, which will be right at the bottom of the screen. And do not forget to follow, subscribe, and just share along with as many people as possible. You never know whose life you can save. Thank you so much for coming, Ma.
You're welcome.
We love you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, guys.